If you could choose to be dyslexic or not be dyslexic, which one would you choose?
I would choose dyslexic. Because dyslexic.
Really? Why would you do that? Hi everyone, and welcome to the 7th episode of the Parent Pep Talk. Advice and understanding from experts, parents, and kids. I'm your host, Gary Carton, and today we're focusing on dyslexia, which depending on who you talk to can be considered both a challenge and a gift. We'll talk about exactly why that is, what to look for to know if your child might have dyslexia, and how you can give your kids the emotional and educational support they need, and also get some for yourself as well. And off the record, our panel of middle schoolers who all have dyslexia answer a question about how parents can best support their kids, and one incredible mom who loves to read takes one for the team by sharing a story about how she finally learned to connect with her kid who doesn't. Plus, our Safe Kids Tip of the Week is a great way for the whole family to work together to stay safe. So let's get right to it. By now you probably know that, like many people, I consider teachers to be total heroes, and today's expert is a perfect example. For more than 25 years, Cynthia Davis has dedicated her time and considerable talents to teaching children with special needs. But that's just the beginning. She cares so much about getting kids the support they need that she also helps other teachers learn how to teach these amazing kids. We caught up with Cynthia at the Riverside School in North Chesterfield, Virginia, which is one of the top schools in the country for kids with dyslexia. Well, Cynthia, thank you so much for joining us on the Parent Pep Talk. We really appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
So this is a podcast about parenting, so we always like to start there. Do you have any kids, and what are their ages?
I do. My son is 19, and he's at UVA, and my daughter is 17, and she's a junior in high school.
And how's that been going so far? How's that raising kids?
Raising kids is a challenge, and of course, no kid is the same. And I thought I had it all worked out with the first one, and then the second one was radically different. So,
Well, cool. Well, we know one thing you are an expert on is dyslexia and helping teachers teach kids with dyslexia. So maybe that's a good place to start. What exactly is dyslexia?
Good question. So I love answering that because there's so many myths. So many teachers think that, or parents or the community think that dyslexia is confusing B's and D's and writing backwards, and that's not what it is at all. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability. It's neurobiological in origin, and it's characterized by difficulty with decoding, which is figuring out words that are unknown, sounding out words, difficulties with reading fluently, specifically reading quickly, and it's characterized by difficulties with spelling. Individuals with dyslexia are bright, often even gifted. It is not that they are lazy or not trying hard, but their brain's just wired differently.
So what kind of signs would parents and teachers be looking for if they thought that maybe their kids were struggling with dyslexia?
Right. Well, if you have a student in kindergarten, especially late kindergarten, and that student is struggling to name letters, or that student is struggling to say the sounds of letters, and that student seems to be quite bright in all other areas, that's a big red flag. If that student is struggling to remember sight words, if that student doesn't like to read, if that student maybe doesn't like to be read to, those are red flags. Another big red flag is if that student has family members with dyslexia, and those family members may not know that they have dyslexia, but if that student has family members who have struggled to read when they were in school, that's another sign.
So let's say a parent does suspect something is going on with their kids and they are struggling with sounds and symbols. Should they get involved right away? Should they wait? Let's say the school says, well, let's just hold off and see. How long should they wait, and when should they get involved?
Very often I talk to parents and they know that their child doesn't know their sounds, and the school knows that the child doesn't know the sounds that letters make, but the school says, hey, you know, your child's going to figure it out. Let's just give them some time. Let's wait and see. And that is absolutely the wrong thing to do.
Right.
Do not wait and see. Get your child tested right away, and don't allow anyone to convince you to delay intervention, because early intervention is absolutely critical.
So how early are we talking about?
Like kindergarten, first grade. If you're able to have your child get intervention in kindergarten or first grade, they will be able to bridge that gap. The gap between where they are and the gap where they need to be is small. And so the chance that they're going to be able to fill that gap is strong. And also, you're hitting that brain development window to be able to take advantage of the plasticity of the brain while the child is young, and to really be able to give them a chance that when they get to third grade, they can be a competent reader. So it's never too late to learn how to read. And if you've not been able to figure it out till fourth or fifth grade, that's fine. But early intervention is critical. And it's hard because at that point you think, well, maybe it's not so bad. I don't need to really just delve into this. But if I could just send a message out to anyone, please, early intervention, you'll be happy that you did it.
Okay, cool. So that's a very straightforward process. It's nothing to worry about. You just kind of go to your school, you talk to the counselor, and you get it taken care of.
Right. I think a lot of parents are worried and scared to do it because they don't want their child to be labeled. And I understand that concern, but you don't have to share the label. You can just take the information. And I think information is power. And our children here love to know more about how their brains work. And honestly, it's a relief to them when they know, okay, I'm not stupid. There's a reason I'm struggling. So I do encourage parents to go ahead and do that testing, even if they are scared of the label that might come out of it.
And that's a great place to move to in terms of the labeling. What's probably a healthy attitude for parents to have if they have kids with dyslexia? Because it's probably natural for them to be a little bit disappointed, or they don't want to see their kids struggle.
Right. And my observation over the years is that when parents discover that their child has a difficulty, it's a process that they go through very similar to when folks mourn a death. I mean, really at first,
wow, that's pretty serious.
There's anger, and I see people stuck in anger for a while. I see parents stuck in denial for a really long time. And then I see when parents move to acceptance, then they're really able to best be able to help their child. The denial phase is a lot of times where parents are looking for a quick fix or saying, this isn't lifelong. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to go to this doctor or this doctor. And unfortunately, I do want to take a minute to talk about that because there's so many businesses out there who would like to tell you that they will fix your child and they're going to fix your child in 6 months. And anyone who says that, I would say be very cautious about that. Dyslexia is not a problem with vision. So going to a vision specialist is not going to fix it. Colored overlays is not going to fix your child's dyslexia. Sensory motor work and occupational therapy is not going to fix your child's dyslexia. And while it's very tempting, I caution you to read more about dyslexia and educate yourself about dyslexia and what really works, which is structured literacy. And unfortunately, that's not a quick fix, but it does work, and research shows that it works.
And it sounds like what you're saying is that the word fix seems to be the problem, because there's nothing broken that you can necessarily fix. It's just a different way of learning. So maybe that's a key, is that parents can understand that their child doesn't need to be fixed. They just need to be helped to learn this different way.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. A metaphor is if you have a car and it's just a regular car and you put gasoline in that car works great. But if you have an electric car and you try to put gasoline in it, it's not going to work. Of course, you have to acknowledge how difficult things are and for your child. And to say, hey, we're going to get you help, and there are known, researched ways to teach you how to learn how to read, and it's going to take you longer, and we're going to figure this out. And it's going to be hard, but you're going to make it through, and we're going to help you. But by the same token, to be able to identify the beauty that goes along with having a different brain and some of the strengths that go along with that. And every child with dyslexia is different, just as every child in general is different. But we do see so many amazing talents come out of kids with dyslexia, sometimes because of adversity, and sometimes because they see things in a completely different way. A higher percentage of entrepreneurs are dyslexic just because they have had to think about things differently, and that's a beautiful gift to have.
Wow, that's a great way to say it. Okay, so now parents realize they've done the testing, they realize their kids have dyslexia. What's a realistic next step?
Well, they're going to need to educate themselves. Read as much as you can about dyslexia. Read Overcoming Dyslexia by Sally Shaywitz. Read everything that you can read on the International Dyslexia Association website. Partner with other informed parents who have children with dyslexia in their communities. Any way that they can educate themselves and partner alongside with their child in a way that doesn't make their child feel like there's something wrong with me or mom's trying to fix me, I guess would also be my advice.
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that leads me to my next question. So we know there are steps parents can take in terms of academics and how to give the kids the support that they need.
Right.
But now we're talking about the emotional support.
Yes.
Because it is tough when you're young.
Right.
You don't have the perspective of understanding that this is going to be a good thing later on because I'm going to overcome all these challenges. When you're going through it, you just kind of feel like maybe you're not that smart.
Right.
What specific things can parents do to help build their children's self-esteem and make them understand the truth, which is that this is just a different way of learning, but different can be good?
Right. I think that's great. And I'm glad you asked that, because one of the ways that parents can do that is to be looking for the strengths that their child has and to be celebrating those strengths and to be building on those strengths. So yes, get intervention, but also right away, look at all the amazing things that your child is good at and encourage that in any way that they can. So if their child is great at putting together Legos, look at that skill and look how they can channel that, and spend time playing with your child. Give your child opportunity to do that with their friends. Anything that they can do to have their child use their skills to help others in the community. We know very specifically that when kids help other individuals, it builds their self-esteem, because they're able to take who they are and what they're good at and feel great about themselves because they're helping someone else. It's really neat for our kids to be in touch with individuals, and there are millions, I would say, individuals who are successful adult dyslexics who have said, hey, this was tough, but I made it through it and I'm stronger for it. So to be able to focus on the positives, to develop those positives, while at the same time, you're making sure that your child's getting the remediation that they need in reading.
And then what about those times when your child does come home and realize, because they are different and reading is a little bit more difficult for them, what are some great things that moms and dads can do to kind of support their kids in those moments?
Right. I think moms and dads need to understand how difficult it is for their child in school, to talk with their children about how school is so hard, but really an understanding of how their child is physically and emotionally and mentally exhausted at the end of the day. And if you have that understanding, then maybe you will not be as frustrated with your child when they just completely break down after school.
Right. That's
and
a
they
normal
lose
thing
it.
to do.
That is completely normal. And it's because there's that trust bond with the parents. You know, at school, they have to hold it together all day long. But at home, they know that their parents are going to be able to be there for them and are going to love them no matter what. And it is a very normal thing for parents to experience this. It's not you. And very often it's tempting to want to throw down behavior modification, and really honestly, that's important, but it's also important to sometimes just let your kid vent.
Oh, that's great to know. And so I guess I will finish with this. You've been around this and you're so great at helping teachers and kids. Can you talk a little bit about that feeling that you get when you see it work out, when you see a child who obviously has dyslexia, which can be a challenge, but they get the support they need from the teacher, from the parents, and how that child then can go on and blossom and really thrive?
Yeah, it's exciting to see. I've been blessed to be able to have worked with some families for years and worked with their child when they were in 4th grade all the way through college. And you know, our hope for our children is that whatever their gifts and abilities are, that they're going to be able to use those and not have the reading get in the way of it. We have gifted, brilliant, incredible kids, and we want them to meet their potential. And so it's such a blessing to be able to teach them to read, teach them to write, and send them on and watch them fly.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for what you do. You are a total hero, and I know you're making a huge difference for so many of these kids, so we really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get to our Off the Record segment, I wanted to let you know that the Parent Pep Talk is brought to you by Safe Kids Worldwide, an amazing nonprofit that works around the world to protect kids from car crashes, fires, falls, poisoning, burns, and more. Let me give you an example. We know kids have fire drills at school, but do you ever have them at home? That brings us to our Safe Kids Tip of the Week. To keep your family safe, create a home fire escape plan with 2 ways out of every room in case of a fire. If your kids are old enough, ask them to help. You'll be surprised how creative they can be. And there's a sample worksheet on the Safe Kids website to get you started. Once you make the plan, grab a stopwatch and time the whole family to see how fast they can get out of your home. Try to shoot for less than 2 minutes. The kids will love it, and it will make a huge difference if there's ever a real fire. This is just one of the many tips from Safe Kids, so check them out at safekids.org, sign up for their Top Tips newsletter or product recalls, or join them on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram for more tips, videos, and all kinds of things to keep your kids healthy, active, and safe. Okay, so our next segment is called Off the Record, and here's how it works. We have a panel of kids who are going to answer your questions to give you a little insight into what your kids might be thinking. For this episode, we spoke with a panel of middle school kids from Riverside School who all have dyslexia. This week's question is from Debbie.
Hi, my name is Debbie, and I have a question for the kids panel. I just learned that my son has dyslexia, and I've read conflicting reports from parents on how worried I should be. Can you give me a little insight into what his life is going to be like and how it feels to struggle and what I can do to help?
So we've got Katie, Silvio, Elijah, and Henry. So you heard the question, so what do you think?
I think that it would affect them in school, of course, but then they also have that aspect where a lot of dyslexic people have that they're very creative, they can always come up with good ideas, and I just think that brings a good side to dyslexia, and that it will affect and it will be hard at some points, but there's always going to be that good point if you just help them and lead them through what they're struggling with.
Exactly. I would build on that, and if the parent helps them and is by their side, then I think it's a really big part and that they can be really successful.
I think that if your kid is having trouble with their self-thoughts, you as a parent should help them, not say, don't believe what other people say, oh, you're stupid. You should encourage them to believe in themselves.
And have there been times when you guys have felt bad or felt insecure, felt like maybe you're not that smart?
Yes.
So let's go back and can you each talk a little bit about how does it feel when you're sad and when you're down about it? What are you feeling?
You feel like different. That's what I was thinking. Like you feel like different and you stand out to other people. That's what.
Sometimes, and when I'm doing my homework, you're on a simple math problem and the person who's helping you is just staring at you and staring, and you're like, I don't know this, but I should know this. So you kind of feel stupid.
In my opinion, and the fully truth, I feel worthless when I can't do something that is so easy to other people, or that I've let down myself, and it's just really hard to overcome that thought that you are behind, you have a disability, that you are different from someone else.
If you get the help you need, then I think it can make it so you can strive and to not feel that way anymore.
Do you think a parent should be sad if their kid has dyslexia?
No,
not at all.
No.
Why not?
I feel like that dyslexia, sure, it can bring you down at some points, but there's an upside, and that you're no different than anyone else.
So what would you tell parents out there if they find out their kids have dyslexia and they're nervous and scared and a little disappointed? What would you tell them?
I would say that it's going to be fine, and just because they have a disability, it's actually kind of an ability, because they think out of the box, produce different things, they can help in a different way.
I think that you're really going to have patience, and that your child is going to have to take that extra step, but you have to take that extra step with them, because you're going to be there and you're going to see them sad, of course. So you have to make sure that you're being patient if they're upset, that you have to always be there, and you have to be understanding of what they're going through.
And tell them about some of the great people who were dyslexics. Thomas Edison, for example, was a dyslexic. Many people think George Washington was a dyslexic, which I expect is probably true. and so many great people were dyslexics. You just think differently. It doesn't mean that you're worse than anybody. It doesn't mean that you're better than anybody. It just means that you think differently.
So let me ask you this one question. This is a tough one. If you could choose to be dyslexic or not be dyslexic, which one would you choose?
I would choose dyslexic. Because
Really? Why would you do that?
it's just so fun and just takes you in a different road.
Even though it's hard sometimes.
Yeah, it's hard and you still have to try harder.
I think it gives you like challenges, and I think that's preparing you for when you're older.
I've thought about this question for a while, if I could choose to be dyslexic or non-dyslexic. And my decision would be dyslexic, because without my dyslexia, I wouldn't be so confident in school. Yeah, there's challenges, of course, but you can overcome them, and anyone can overcome them. So I think I would definitely choose to be dyslexic. I think it just gives you that extra step and creative mind.
That's a great message. Thank you so much. Well, you guys are amazing, and we really, really appreciate all your time and insights and expertise and honesty. And so thank you so much for helping the parents out there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck, parents.
Good luck to everyone.
Good luck.
And now it's time for our Taking One for the Team segment. I kind of think of parenting as a team sport. Well, this is when one generous parent takes one for the team by sharing a personal story that might not paint their kid or their parenting in the best light, but it hopefully helps the rest of us realize that there are no perfect kids, there are no perfect parents, and that we're all doing our best. This week's story comes from Carol.
Hi, my name is Carol, and I'd like to tell you a story about my son. He always had a hard time reading. He never liked to read. And in third grade, his teacher called us in and said that his reading skills were way below average. So we took him to be tested, and that's when we found out that he had dyslexia. Well, this was hard for me because I love to read. Reading is something that I do, my other kids do, my whole family loves to do. And I thought it would be something we could connect on. So I really wanted him to love to read. And so I tried all sorts of things. If he was interested in anything, he said he wanted to be an architect. So I went out and bought him 3 architecture books. And that was the end of him wanting to be an architect. And it was very difficult to watch him have a difficult time in school. Finally, in high school, he had an assignment one day, and I noticed that what he would do is he'd go around talking to people, sort of interviewing them and asking them what they thought about the topic he was working on. And lo and behold, he wrote a paper, and he got a very good grade on it. And he used this strategy quite a few times. And finally, we realized that this was a way he was overcoming his reading problem.
So what eventually happened to get that connection with your son? What did you do?
Well, I think once I realized that he had developed other ways of learning and that he could thrive in an environment that was difficult for him, I think I relaxed. I think before I was really tense, and once I saw him employ these strategies, I relaxed. And I realized that I could be interested in the things he was interested in, and we could enjoy those things together. So we talked about things, what he wanted to be, where he wanted to go to college, which was something I wasn't sure he was going to be able to do when he was younger. We went to baseball games. I'm a big Cubs fan now. We watched football games. We could read the sports page together, which was sort of getting him to read, but it was about something that he really, really was interested in.
Your son just sounds like a total pain, by the way. So what is he doing now?
He's an adult now, He still doesn't like to read. But the funny thing is, he became a writer, which is the furthest thing from my mind.
So you never would have thought when he was a kid that he would grow up to be a writer?
Never. He struggled in school so much I didn't know what he would be. And I was worried he was going to live at home forever. But he writes children's books. He works at a great place. He's got his own podcast.
He does?
Yes, he does. I think everybody should listen.
Well, I'm sure that he owes a lot of that to an incredible mom. And has this son of yours ever told you what a great mom you are and how much he appreciates all the amazing things that you've done for him?
Not enough.
Well, I should tell you then, Mom, thank you very, very much for sharing this story and for helping out and for taking one for the team. We really appreciate it.
Love you.
Love you too. Now you have it on tape. And finally, I wanted to share this story. When I was in the 3rd grade, I was pulled out of my reading class, which was totally embarrassing. The teacher took me aside and asked me if I knew what a learning disability was. I said no, and she said it's a gift. She said that you learn differently and you see differently than most people, but different is good. So if your child has dyslexia or any kind of learning disability, or just has their own beat or rhythm, please know that even though I didn't realize at the time, after all these years, I can tell you without a doubt that my teacher was right. Different is good. And dyslexia, or anything else that makes us unique, is most definitely a gift. And now here's a preview from one of our most requested episodes on cell phones and technology.
Our whole home is wired. My son has lots of tech, and there are a lot of great things our kids can and should be doing. But if we don't teach them how to use these tools properly, then we're in for a world of hurt.
And that's the end of our show. Thank you so much for tuning into the Parent Pep Talk. If you liked our podcast, please subscribe for free on iTunes or your podcast app, and also leave us a rating. If you didn't like it, I promise I'll try to do better the next time. I'd also love to hear from you. If you have any comments or questions for me or our kids panel, or stories you'd like to share that would make other parents feel better, or ideas for episodes, please don't hesitate to email me at parentpeptalk@safekids.org or contact me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Gary Carton. Have a great week, everyone. Remember, you're doing great, even if it doesn't feel like it, and we'll see you next time on the Parent Pep Talk.